Welcome back, everyone. So, yes, it seems it is certain US states, mostly, well, in fact, entirely Republican states are suing President Biden and I guess his administration over recent plans to forgive student debt. This is nothing new, actually. But Biden released his plan, one of the plans to relieve student debt over 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's
That's
been a
when
while.
it started. And it was even one of his campaign pledges. So he's been kind of building up to this for ages and ages. And some things have gone through. His relief of student debt for federal government workers was successful, and many of them have already received the cancellation of their debt, but they keep trying to sort of expand the program and bring in debt relief for new areas, new groups, new professions. So the latest challenge comes from, again, these Republican states, and they're trying to block the debt relief for teachers in their states. The arguments surrounding it tend to focus on things like, oh, it's not fair for people who have already paid off their debt. But none of it seems really focused on the teachers themselves and how many of them are in desperate need and have been paying off already for a very long time and are still nowhere near completing the debt repayment. Even the article doesn't even mention the fact that the only teachers who would qualify for this kind of debt relief are ones who have already been paying off the debt for 10 years or more. So it does seem like the Republican argument might not have legs. Again, I don't know all the nitty-gritty, but at least looking at a few basic details, I'm hoping maybe their lawsuit might not go through. But then, of course, you have to consider the fact that in the US, if it goes all the way up to the Supreme Court, that is Republican ruled. They have the Republican majority, so they will strike it down no matter what. So, I don't know. It remains to be seen, but it's possible. It looks possible that this might pass. Also, I guess maybe particularly the Democrats are hoping that if they get Kamala Harris in the White House for the next 4 years, they will be able to continue trying to fight these legal restrictions and, gradually get more and more people relieved of their debt. But again, it's not everybody. It's not a blanket debt relief plan. It's specific professions, and if they've been repaying debt for a certain amount of time, and there are many caveats. But it could, this latest one, if it goes through, it could be debt relief of $4.1 billion.
Think of that.
Yeah,
Just teachers who have been paying off for 10 years are $4.1 billion in debt.
Yeah. And I assume that even if it gets blocked in places like Georgia and I was looking up the Republican states, but I've forgotten now, but the Democratic states, they probably will get their debts relieved. I assume.
We'll see who gets the last laugh in the end. Because we don't know, actually.
No, don't know.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm just a British person who did 10 minutes research online. I don't really know much about this issue. Let's ask an American.
Oh, gosh.
What are your thoughts on student debt forgiveness? Do you think it's a good idea?
What I said before is we don't know what will happen, and that's because there is limited evidence on both sides for the short and long-term effects of what debt relief may do to both people, the economy, and whatever, local and widespread economy, whatever you want to say, the whole nation's economy. On the anti-forgiveness side, there is some evidence that supports that forgiving student loans actually causes people to go out and get more student loans, going back to school or trying to redo the school that they regret doing or whatever. There's evidence that I'm trying to remember what it was now, but there's evidence that forgiving student loans in the short term, we don't know about long term, but in the short term is going to really cause inflation to rise even more because suddenly all this money is missing, basically canceled. Although technically there's money moving to cancel it, it's still in the end canceled. On the supporters side, there's minimal evidence to show that this is going to be very helpful, especially in the long run. People who have less debt are statistically more likely to be spending more, buying more. People with debt often, obviously, try to save as much money as possible. And the fact that a lot of people are in debt now from student loans into their 40s, it's showing a possible effect on childbirth rate, marriage, things like that. So yeah, there's obviously some evidence to support either side. Personally, I think the evidence to support the supporting side, which means the long-term effects outweighing the short-term inflation that may happen or may not, definitely outweighs the possible negative effects from this, obviously. Like, yeah, the economy is going to have a little upset for a second, but what economy hasn't had an upset for like the last 10 years? Every couple years there's been something wrong. So like, let's get this reset and get people back to it. And maybe you can add caveats and be like, hey, if it's forgiven, you can't go back and, retake a degree or something like that. I don't know.
It's a one-time deal.
Yeah, it's like a one-time deal. Your next one, sucks to be you type thing. Maybe, I don't know, but forgiving is going to be helpful in the long run to America after reading a lot about this subject.
I see. Well, interesting to get your perspective. Yes. So, have you or someone you know been affected by student loan debt? Have you had this discussion with your family or friends?
Yeah. So, obviously I'm American, so pretty much everyone I know in America has been affected by student loans, directly or indirectly, mostly directly. And yeah, we've had discussions. Some people are, of course, on the side of not canceling, and some are on the side of canceling. Student loans cripple people a lot. And everyone I've talked to, whether they don't want it canceled or they do, have all agreed that student loans are a black mark in their life, a burden, a giant ball and chain that they have to drag everywhere. So relief somehow should happen, somehow, even if it's not like this forgiveness stuff.
Yes. Who knows, maybe there could be a different deal or idea that might work better.
Yeah.
Well, good luck to you, student loan debtors.
And the argument that it's unfair to people, it's like, it's so stupid. Yeah. It's like, so your dad beat you, so it's unfair to your son if you don't beat him because you got beat. It's like, obviously that's not true. Anyways, all right, let's move on.
Yes, it's a bit of a backwards argument. But anyway, what is totally logical and totally good without any moral qualms is the vocabulary section.
Okay, yeah.
Go down, check it out, receive all those goodnesses. They might not forgive your debt, but they will give you relief because your English will be better. See you in the next article. Bye-bye.
Debt forgiveness.
Debt forgiveness.
Federal.
Federal.
Waiver.
Waiver.
Relief.
Relief.
Scheme.
Scheme.